Hello, hello. Welcome to Admitted, the College Confidential podcast, your spot for talking all things college. My name is Gabby. I'm a student at Case Western Reserve University and a College Confidential ambassador.
And my name is John, and I'm the head of community at College Confidential, and we're your hosts. Hi, it's Jon Ericson, head of community at College Confidential, and I have with me two special guests. You will have seen them around the site if you've used the site at all. And the first I have is Linda. Can you introduce yourself, Linda?
Hi, I'm LindaGaf, and I'm a moderator on College Confidential. I joined in 2014. I have a kid who's just finishing up grad school and a kid who just graduated from college, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. And we also have a gentleman who goes by BKSquared on the forums. We're just going to call you BK this time around. So BK, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. BK, and I joined the site back in 2016, which was a year my son was applying to college. I have two kids that have both graduated. One is in a PhD program. The other is working in finance in New York City. I am a 25-year plus interviewer for Yale. So, it was nice to find this site when we were doing my son's application.
Yeah. So to full disclosure, my son is in college too, but I didn't come to College Confidential to use to find out information for him. In fact, he refused to use the site, even though I was working here. So I think, I think there's sort of there's something about like you don't want to do what your parents tell you to do, and there's a little rebellious streak, even though he's an amazing kid in every way. So you both found the site via or in order to research more for college admissions, it sounds like. BK, do you remember like how you discovered it? Was it like a Google search, or did someone recommend it?
Yes, it was a Google search. I was trying to figure out, which APs, whether or not we should disclose all AP scores or only fives. And the site came up on the search, and so there was a little thread on that, and then my wife and I both got curious about other things on the site, and that's how we started observing. And I did not participate for a long time. I just kind of was reading the stuff as we were going through our process.
Do you remember, by the way, what the advice was? Should you do only fives, or do you do all of them?
It was mixed. So it was definitely do the fives, definitely do the fours, and the threes. Some people said, well, if you show that you're taking the class, a 3 is not the end of the world. Others said, if you're being selective, just show them the 4s and the 5s. So that was it was interesting. We ended up just disclosing everything because they were almost all 4s and 5s. There's just maybe 1 3 that I didn't know what we should do with.
Yeah. So this is something I've discovered about the forums is you sometimes go for easy answers, and what you get is nuanced answers, which are sometimes not as easy to apply, but I find very fascinating. Linda, do you remember like how you discovered the site?
Oh my gosh. My very first post ever was, you might know it, where do the cool kids go to college? I mean, now I'm like, what was I thinking when I posted that? But it ended up being this fairly legendary thread. I just was looking for ideas about how to give my daughter some advice about where she could apply. And, I can't remember exactly how I was led to College Confidential, but I do remember thinking, oh, I can just ask these people questions. Oh, all right, I'll just ask a question. So I posted my question and I was amazed that people responded right away. And then so I got a bunch of good advice from people, and then I actually didn't come back to CC for a few months, I guess. I think I might have posted that in February or something. I can't actually remember. And then until I think I didn't do anything until November again or something, after my daughter had already applied. And I just thought, oh, I'll go back to that thread and I'll see if anybody's interested. So I just said, maybe nobody's interested, but my daughter ended up applying to these schools and everybody was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then it just kind of ended up going on and on and on. And she ended up getting off of these wait lists, and it became this very kind of dramatic, fun thing. And the community was invested in it. And I think that was it. I was in hook, line, and sinker. There was no escape after that.
Yeah. Well, you've both obviously found your way to find other topics to discuss. I think it's interesting, kind of taking a step back. Linda, you jumped right into the conversation. You saw, hey, there are people who will answer my question, and it sounded like BK, you spent a good deal of time reading. We used to call those the sorts of people who spend a lot of time reading the site lurkers, and I've decided that that's not a good way to think about it, because what you were doing was learning. You were reading the site, trying to figure out more about our topic, and maybe even learning about the site itself. And lurker just sounds, negative, and learner is what you really are doing. Does that seem kind of right, BK?
Yes, and we were going through the site, and the topics would come up and the interesting ones I would read. And what actually prompted me to start posting and responding to things were, frankly, I saw on a lot of the questions and answers on the more selective colleges that people were parroting what a lot of consultants were saying, which, as an interviewer and as an alum, and with 2 kids that got into highly selective colleges, just seemed off to me. They seemed to be advice geared towards the paid consultants, their selling point that I know the secret sauce, so therefore you should be doing these things. And it just didn't ring true to me. So I had to respond based upon my personal experience. Maybe they're right. No, that's what they do for a living, that it wasn't what I had observed in real life.
Yeah. So that's a really powerful phenomenon that happens, is when you start reading things and you're like, that's a little off. There's a real incentive to say, no, wait a minute. At least maybe not contradicting, but giving an alternative point of view.
Yeah, obviously, if you've read my responses, I am always trying to be polite and giving the benefit of the doubt to people and presenting it as, well, here's another way to think about it, versus this is an idiotic way to think about it. You don't make a lot of friends that ways. Even on the internet, I think some civility is in order. So there are a couple of issues that I still will jump into the fray because I just don't think it's right. But I've been shot down a lot by other seesears, so maybe they're correct, and my recollections or my experience is that of the dodo bird rather than a current person.
But I think that's when it gets fun. Once we all start debating that particular thing, or sorry, no, we do not debate on College Confidential. We discuss. But that's what makes it fun, especially when you get really knowledgeable people in there. and everybody's got some valid experiences, and when you get really knowledgeable users coming in and giving their point of view, and then it really starts getting interesting. So,
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few seesears on the site that they have a world of knowledge and data in their fingertips, and I'm amazed that they've got that much time to pull numbers out of a lot of disparate sources. So I learn a lot. A lot of it is confirmatory, but some of it is surprising, and the
definitely.
discussions that are generated I think are really helpful, even if there's no right answer. It gives valid ways to approach a problem or to see what the possible consequences are of decisions. And I think as a parent, that's what you're looking for. You're not seeking a prophecy, you're seeking probabilities of what could happen if certain other things fall in this fashion.
That is so true. I mean, honestly, I think, sorry if I'm jumping
No,
in
go
here.
for it.
I really think that if I had not found that website, I don't think either of my kids would have had the outcomes that they had.
Mm.
I just got such good advice, and some of it I really took it to heart, particularly with my son. He had learning disabilities. He did not have, I mean, he had a good academic record, but he had some glitches in there. It was much more difficult to sort of pin down what would be the best path for him. But honestly, without the CC community, I don't think it would have happened the way it did happen. And, he ended up having a very successful 4 years of college with some hiccups, but, he just started working a couple of weeks ago, first job.
Oh, congratulations.
And yeah, thank you. And he's loving it so far. And that's kind of really what you want, is your kid to have a successful college experience and go out into the world and do what they're meant to do after that. And I really feel strongly that we were able to navigate that process with CC.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to put that on a what do you call it, like a review, we'll review blurb thing on the site. Yeah, so as a parent, I think there's a process to try to get the best outcome for to produce the best outcome for your children, but you're not in control of a lot of the things that that come out of it. Learning disabilities, for instance, for instance, a lot of parents in my age, we've had to deal with COVID, and I just threw a giant monkey wrench in everybody's plans, whoever you are. And when you're applying for college during the COVID years, it was different.
Totally.
And I think like the wisdom that comes from College Confidential is not because we have 2 or 3 very knowledgeable people. We do have those people, but because we've got a variety of opinions. You mentioned, Linda, we don't debate, and that's sort of one of the mantras that we have when it comes to moderating. But we do have discussions, and the difference is when you reach a disagreement, you don't just try to drive the other person to the ground. You say, "Yep, we disagree on this," and you move on, and the information is there, but it's not. You don't wear out the welcome sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So what values have you seen, BK, in College Confidential, either I guess with your own kids, but also beyond, like you're continuing to participate?
Well, it's always kind of interesting to see what's going on. I spend most of my time just looking at the threads that are talking about advice related to college admissions or to athletic recruiting, because both my kids had gone through the athletic recruiting process, and there I really had wished I had access to this site for both of them, because by the time they were applying to college, we already through all of the athletic recruiting stuff, which was totally alien to me. And there are a lot of things I could have applied and gotten, there would have been less anxiety for my two kids through the process, because you would have got, there's very good insights on CC from a lot of the experienced posters as to what's going on behind the scenes in the process. So you're not wondering, does the coach hate my kid, or does the coach love my kid, or where am I in the process? And actually, I found that form to be particularly useful and informative. Although there's like one gazillion thread thing going on right now where it like I've almost I almost stopped reading it, because people are just going around in circles, and so it's become less helpful. It's really helpful when there's like a specific question and experienced posters say, well, this is likely what's going on, or you should do this next. And then we just stop speculating about a lot of other things that are going on.
Yeah, kind of the phenomenon I was just talking about, where if everyone has their say and then they move on, you have a very valuable resource for people. When they keep going back to their same points, or it gets long and involved, and like it's a little less useful as a resource, honestly. And even someone like you who's interested will stop reading after a while.
Well, that particular thread, I know which one you're talking about, has been kept open because the person who created it specifically asked for it to be kept open. But there have been one or two flags. Let's just put it that way. One or two.
That's just such an interesting series of conversations, where when it first started out, I was responding to it because it was obviously parents from a foreign country that were trying to understand the US athletic recruiting process, although I think both of the parents had gone to Stanford or someplace like that in the States. So they kind of knew about the American system, but it just kept on going because they weren't, in some respects, they weren't listening. And then in other respects, people weren't listening to their response. So that's how we got caught into this kind of circle. And a few times, like, I thought uncalled for comments, but then we're kind of reading the gossip pages rather than trying to help each other.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
sometimes
Linda,
it's fun though. If it's sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, you're a moderator. How do you think about these sorts of threads? What's your game plan when you approach them for moderation purposes?
Right. So if we're talking about the thread I believe we're talking about, which has been flagged a number of times, and I believe it's become totally circular, I just think, you know what, if everybody wants to keep participating, as long as they're not breaking the terms of service or the forum rules, let them go ahead and keep participating. Sometimes it's fun when a thread kind of starts going off the rails, when it goes off in an entertaining tangent. And sometimes we'll just let it go off on that entertaining tangent for a while, just because it becomes fun. Like maybe people will start posting witticisms, or I'm thinking of a particular thread right now that somebody posted in the student lounge, which very quickly gained momentum, and people were pretty funny on there. So yeah, I mean, generally when we need to get involved as moderators are people being nasty to each other? Is somebody being nasty outright to the person who posted, who created the post? has the conversation swerved so far from the original topic that maybe it needs to be split off into its own thread, which definitely happens because then it's more productive. The person who posted can get their question answered, and somebody who came up with the interesting new topic can also have that addressed separately, and then both of those threads might end up taking off and gaining momentum. So it's fun to see the dynamic sometimes of like sometimes we know immediately, okay, let's take bets. I'm looking at my watch, how long before this thread gets shut down?
Yep.
And we can usually predict that. But it's also good that we have the politics forum now, because nowadays we can say, go over there and post this probable controversial topic over there in the politics forum. So, I mean, when I became a moderator, it really changed my perspective on how many people just really don't know what's going on in the world of college admissions. How many people are really naive about what the situation is like these days with college admissions. I mean, I could go off on a whole separate tangent about this. I should make a new thread, right?
Yes.
I could make a new thread. But anyway, my perspective as a moderator is that the best thing for me has been that I really have to try to be a lot more impartial, and I have to try to see both sides of things, and I have to not let my own judgment or my own opinions about things get in the way too much. So, sometimes if somebody's posting a thread, and I really want to comment on it, but I think it could be problematic, I might actually just not post on it because I'm aware that I might have to step in and do some moderation or something, even though I really want to say something. So yeah, I could do a whole separate podcast about that, but I won't.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy the fact that the moderators kind of let the posts go freewheeling for a while, because I do think if you go just slightly off tangent, sometimes it brings in some very interesting related issues. So I'm glad for the most part that the touch is light, and that it's only really applied when things get nasty or really just two posters are going around in a circle. And we see that a while, and sometimes it's amusing for me to read the two people circling each other, but after a while, I just don't bother going back to that thread because it'll be the same thing.
Yeah, and if it gets disruptive to the thread, that will be a time when we have to step in. If other people can't say what they want to say, if people are bickering too much or whatever, then yeah, we definitely are going to step in and clean up or send a message to the people who were involved in the bickering or whatever it may be.
I've heard lots of comments from people who've said that one of the strengths of College Confidential is the moderation. And it's good to hear from BK that you also think moderation has been a plus, and I think it's been a huge plus, to be honest, compared to other places. Let's take a shift in topic. BK, I'm curious about what it's like to be an interviewer for a very selective school. How much time does it take? Are you get to talk to a bunch of students, I suppose, and what have you learned, and what has it been like for you?
It has been a really enriching experience for me, on a number of fronts. One, it keeps me connected with my college, and it's always great to meet, truly wonderful kids that are interested in going to the college that you went to. So you kind of keep current on what kids are thinking, where their passions are, what they're concerned about. And by and large, and I don't think Yale ever advertised it, but I know for longer than they've admitted it, they've actually been selective in who are interviewed. I think it's been quite some time since I've had any real duds.
Mm-hmm.
And I am aware that, you know, kids that are just superstars are going to get in. They'll get an interview only as a sales pitch to get them in. So the interviews that I do typically are for, you know, the average excellent kid that we talk about all the time on the site. And it's kind of their opportunity to present themselves as a person rather than as pieces of paper. And I honestly believe that the admissions office, they're not gonna say, no, you know, because Bob really likes this guy and he likes every kid though, we're gonna let him in. I think what they're gonna say is, this description that he's written is very consistent with all the other pieces of the application, and therefore we're going to, you know, and this is someone we want, so we're going to offer that kid a place in the class. I do about 4 interviews a year, 2 in the early cycle and 2 in the regular cycle. And the interviews take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. And then it takes me 2 to 3 hours to write the review. Yale gives you pretty detailed guidelines on what they want to see in the interview report. Now, I don't know if every interviewer follows those rules to a T. I imagine some of the older ones, and unfortunately I'm getting to be one of the older ones, they just write what they want to write. But I follow their, okay, can you make sure you tell us about the kids' X, Y, Z qualities. And I try to do that in a thoughtful way because it's important to the kids. So I need to spend the time to present my impressions accurately.
Well, it's a really unusual volunteer position that you've got. Honestly, like there's only probably a handful of colleges that have that process in the first place. Some of the top ones, I would imagine. Interesting. Also sounds like a little bit like a job interview.
It's actually good practice for a job interview. And I've done a bunch of mock interviews for people who know that I interview, and I'll do a mock interview for college purposes and I'll do it for job purposes because I've been very heavily involved in hiring for my former law firm and for the investment bank I used to work for.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we've used quite a bit of time. I wanted to find out if there were any other last minute thoughts or anything that this conversation has sparked that you want to mention. Linda, do you have anything that you want to cover?
Well, one of the original ideas of this podcast, I thought, was for us to just kind of say, why are we still coming here?
Oh yes, please. That's great.
I'd really like to get to that, because why I keep coming here, there are 2 main reasons why I keep coming to College Confidential. One is, obviously, I enjoy helping students. The best thing is when I get a personal message from a student who's been on the site and they say, thank you so much. The advice you gave me really helped me. And that makes it really worth it, because you don't hear back from 99% of the students who come here. So that just really makes it worth it. But the bigger reason why I've kept coming back to College Confidential is because I just really like all of the people in this community. I like these intelligent people who have something interesting to say, who all seem to also be invested in the students who come to the site. Some of these people, I mean, I know I spend a lot of time on College Confidential, but I'm also amazed that everybody else is spending a lot of time on College Confidential. And I can only think that people keep coming here to spend their time because they like the community of people. Like I said, I have met some of the people in real life. They're really nice people. There are some people that I love having these, conversations with on various threads. BK is one of them. And I just like this collective wisdom. And like I said, when I first came, I never imagined that I would still be on this website almost 10 years later. But I just like the people in the community. So I keep coming back. I feel like there are people that I could be friends with if I was hanging out with them in real life. So
yeah, I would echo everything Linda said, and it's just been, as far as social media and the internet is concerned, it's one of the few places where I'm not afraid to engage in a conversation. Like everywhere else, I just put up pictures of my kids and my dog, right? Because God knows what you're going to get back if you say anything that is the least bit controversial. And what's really nice about this community is people are very receptive to different ideas, different opinions. And you can actually, and I've just done it a couple times on the political forum, you can actually have an intelligent conversation about points of view that can be very, very different in this age. And you won't feel like, you're going to get into a fist fight over the internet or something like that. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the rest of this stuff is. So it's a very welcoming place to read other people's ideas and thoughts, and to express ideas that you think would be helpful to the conversation. So that's why I'm still on.
Oh, wow, that warms my heart. I'm obviously much newer to the community because I came from a different job and kind of like, okay, I got to get to know all these folks. But I've definitely found when you talk to people who are involved in College Confidential, it's very intelligent people, very thoughtful people, very kind people, and like it's honestly unusual to have a community where people are not only forming friendships online, but also like making the effort to do things, contact each other and do things in real life. And that isn't necessary. It's not a vital part of the community, but it shows that there is a vitality and some very good relationships are being formed, and that makes me really happy. I think both of you are huge parts of what makes College Confidential this amazing place and a welcoming, strong, informative community. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I probably would have wanted to do another hour, but maybe we could do another hour some other time in the months and the months ahead.
Sure.
So I want to thank you both. Any final thoughts, and then I'll sign off.
My final thought would be for any newer parents to the college process who are listening to this: your kid will end up where they're supposed to go. It's a cliche, but it's just so true.
Yeah,
Please don't stress. Don't make your kid a stress head when they should be having a fun time as teenagers.
especially that senior year. It drives me nuts that kids are so
Yeah.
stressed out that senior year.
It is.
BK, what about you? Final thought?
I really enjoyed the conversation with you all. I totally agree that, you know, your kid is going to end up where they're meant to end up. And the key is for them to approach it in that fashion. And what am I going to do with the next 4 years, which should be for the best years of their lives. And as long as they approach college in that way, it really doesn't matter what name is on top of the diploma. And I think parents would be well served to approach the process in this way. We're just trying to find the best place for you. And once we've found it, then you make the best of your opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good final words. And I'm going to say goodbye to you all and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. It's been nice chatting with everybody.
Yes, very nice meeting you all.
As always, I want to thank our guests for appearing on Admitted and remind you that if you want to find out more about the college admissions process, to go to collegeconfidential.com, where we have forums with lots of people who are excited to talk with you about everything college related. You could perhaps start your own Chance Me or Match Me thread, and maybe you'll find out about a school that you hadn't considered before.